CW Flash's Iris West. Some people love her, some people, by some people, I mean a lot of people, absolutely hate her. Now, is it valid that you dislike the character of Iris West from CW's Flash? Yes, I think it's very valid. Now, is it valid to hate on the actress? Not necessarily. A lot of the things involving the actress is quite literally out of her control, and she can only focus on, the script that was given to her. But the thing is, and what I really want to talk about today, is how to properly write CW Flash's Iris West. Now, I want to say this. Take everything I say with a massive grain of salt, because at the end of the day, I am a YouTuber. I am somebody who makes content, and somebody who does not have, multiple degrees in, writing and literature and whatever you want to call it. I'm not super, obviously intellectual involving every aspect of the writing process, and also I'm not necessarily a comic nerd. I am definitely still a casual, but there are some major issues that I want to talk about involving CW Flash's Iris West and how you would make it better. Now, number one, I would personally love for her to keep her identity as a journalist first and everything separate, right? Everything else as second. Now, I say this as if you want to build her as a main character, because at the end of the day, a lot of these characters, a lot of these, Flash's, love interests, right? Superman's love interests, they are not main characters. They're just not. And it's weird calling them side characters, because they are pretty important to the person that they are in love with, right? Your Lois Lane, your Iris West, your Black Canary, which I guess you got to give that with a grain of salt, because Black Canary is pretty important in some aspects. And also other love interests that, maybe waver with Batman and stuff like that. But that's a little off topic. Now, with that said, these love interests are meant to be quote-unquote side characters. They're not meant to be a main character, but if you do make them a main character, you have to make them in a way that they have their own legs to stand on. And the one way you could do that is make sure you heavily lean into the journalist side of Iris West first, and keep her there. Keep her as a journalist and not some science, battlefield, strategy, tech, right? These are not things that Iris West does. And keeping her in the aspect of, I'm a journalist, I'm somebody who's going to write about the Flash, I'm somebody who's going to write about the villains, I'm somebody who's going to write about the city of Central City. These are things that would make it so much better. She asks the questions nobody wants to ask. She digs into secrets the city may ignore. She uncovers stories that the public perception may not be able to understand. And like I said before, we could have a proper arc for her as a quote-unquote main or somewhat main character. Give her kind of like a Lois Lane style of reporter, maybe exposing meta corruption, maybe cover-ups that may happen in governments or meta stuff, or villain groups, hidden threats, anything you can see, and sometimes be connected to Team Flash, not as a leader, but as somebody who's calling out these villains, calling out these groups. And that's how you could really get her on screen. Let's say, for example, she calls out a very serious villain group, and guess what? She's in danger, right? Because these people, they want her to shut up, they want her to be quiet, they don't want her to continue, spouting these things, and that's when, Barry comes to save her, or she has some involvement with Team Flash. But at the end of the day, I don't want her in the lab, right? I don't want her in the lab, I don't want her, anywhere near kind of like the forefront of the actual fighting, the actual, planning, the actual strategic kind of side of things in terms of Team Flash. And number two, she should challenge the Flash, just not work for him. And I said this before, that if she joins Team Flash, she loses all her narrative power. Everything that makes her as a character kind of just gets meshed into one thing, and that's not what you want involving this. She is a reporter, especially as a main character. She needs to be a separate reporter and also the love interest for the Flash, right? The love interest for Barry Allen. And at the end of the day, right, you have her role isn't to operate comms and do this and do that. She's basically asking these questions. She's asking various questions like, oh, should all metas be registered, right? Maybe something along the lines of superhero policies or superhuman policies, and or like, you know, the idea of maybe the public losing trust with various, you know, superheroes, but also with various, you know, like cops and different precincts, because they're not really, you know, standing up to the meta like challenges the way that maybe some of these other superheroes, aka the Flash, are actually, you know, standing up to them. And the main thing, right, the main number one thing that I want to talk about is having her be heavily on the side of basically being that love interest, right? The love interest for Barry Allen, the love interest for the Flash. Because that's the thing. I want her mainly, when we're seeing with her and Barry, I want it to be a relationship. It's mostly just relationship stuff. It's mostly them, you know, either going out on a date or, you know, something along those lines, right? You know, raising a family, doing stuff that, you know, couples would end up doing, or things that, you know, we build up to, instead of kind of getting these weird arguments involving, you know, like, oh, how should we approach this Barry in the field, or how should we do this? I mean, she needs to be that separate buffer for him to get away from being the Flash, because that's what it is. She needs to be the buffer and the separation of the Flash himself, and obviously Barry Allen. In the show that we got, the one that loves drama and loves to fill our heads with drama, she loves the idea of that we are the Flash. No, you two are not the Flash together. That's not the truth, and you're supposed to be the person that separates him from his line of work of being a hero, sacrificing and basically putting up his life day in and day out to save people and help people. You're supposed to be the one that separates that from basically that time, and separates that from basically you know, all that hero work, and help him kind of like, you know, relax as Barry Allen, help him understand that he can have enjoyment of being Barry Allen and being with her. And like I said, Iris should have her independent goals, her independent failures, and independent victories, right? These are things that she needs to have as a character in terms of taking down certain things via the work that she does personally, right? We have seen it, like especially with, which I'll be comparing quite a bit, with Lois Lane. Lois Lane is heavily focused on her line of work, right? Heavily focused on that. She's not sticking her neck out and basically like, oh, I'm going to be involved with every single thing that Superman or Clark does, no matter what. So that should not be the case, like, at all. You should be essentially this helpful kind of person, this very, very sweet person to come home to, and have your own issues at home as well. Because guess what? If you have issues as a superhero team and as a couple, I mean, that is like having two basically relationships at the same time, having double the work and double the headaches. And it just makes no sense for somebody who doesn't have powers, doesn't have any interests in fighting on the front lines and stuff like that. She has her own, you know, desires, her own wishes and hopes for the future. It feels like you shouldn't cram her into the story just for the sake of putting her in the story. Because here's the thing. I don't mean that she needs to be a minor character, a side character, or anything like that. But I don't believe as well that you need to shove her into certain scenarios that don't really need her in the first place. So yeah, does she take a back seat in terms of screen time? Probably, right? That's the reality of basically not having her intertwined in the, you know, day-to-day Team Flash kind of things that go on. But at the same time, it would be a lot more healthy for the relationship of Barry and Iris if they could truly, like, you know, have that separation and have those like lives completely separate, and at least draw a line between him being the Flash and him being Barry Allen, the husband of Iris West. There needs to be a kind of a separation when they build the relationship, right? When she builds her relationship with Barry, like, you need to have a contrast in what they are, a contrast in who they are and what they're trying to do. Now, obviously, we have moments that intertwine, right? We have, Barry trying to essentially keep the secret away from her, right? Keep the secret away from Iris so that she doesn't learn that he's the Flash. Eventually, she investigates and suspects that maybe there's more to it, and maybe Barry is the Flash, right? All of these things, these are things that I'm fine with happening. The first couple seasons, it makes so much sense. Like, it makes complete sense that they would do it this way. But even Iris West should look at it the way that Joe West looked at it as well. That he didn't want her to be, stuck up in all these things and eventually get hurt, or somehow get hurt by just, knowing the Flash. Because guess what? Having someone closer to you, aka, being a part of the team itself, does not mean she is more kind of like safe by any means. So keeping her a little bit, at arm's distance, a little bit away from it, makes complete sense. And the idea that Iris doesn't understand that herself makes no sense in my opinion at all. So having her be like, look, I wish I could be with you all the time. I wish I could be around, and I wish that I could see you in action all the time, but I know that's not a reality. And frankly, it hurts me too much to watch you do dangerous things and be okay with it. But I do understand you're doing it for the sake of so many people. You're doing it for, helping as many people in Central City and maybe even all around the world. So yeah, does it scare me? Of course. But do I support you? Of course as well. These are like moments that could have happened with Barry and Iris, where Iris separates herself from Team Flash and the Flash world, but still kind of be there in a way for him, right? Tell him, like, when you come home, like, when you're back with me and you're Barry Allen, because that's who I care about is Barry Allen, like, I want that away, right? Like, you don't have to, utilize your powers with me. You don't have to worry about anything else. And it kind of would be that safe space. And there's jokes like, oh, Barry, like, the whole lightning rod thing, right? Oh, you're my lightning rod, whatever. It kind of makes sense, like, to a degree, that Barry runs home to her, right? But when you run home to her, you stop running when you get there. You separate yourself from being the Flash and also Barry Allen, aka the one that Iris West loves. So at the end of the day, yeah, it makes sense for her to be more of a side character / background character. But if you want to make her a main character, give her her own, like, identity. Give her that identity. Because guess what? The audience's, like, point of view, like, we look at it like, you're not a meta expert. You're not this, you're not that, right? You're not some science hero, yada, yada, yada. You're not going to be able to break down things for us and make us understand things or make Barry understand things better. You're essentially just a motivational speech that somehow works, that really it works for no apparent reason, and it's just for, like, the sake of the plot. But being a motivational speech for Barry is not necessarily a bad thing, right? Because she should be the anchor for Barry, right? The one that will hold it down, the one that will, like, basically be able to help him as much as she possibly can through her own perspective. Because guess what? She would be, in my reality of making, rewriting her, she would be more of like the city's truth kind of teller, right? She would be the audience's kind of like perspective on if you cared about somebody doing very, very risky things. She would be a partner, not some sort of like commander, not some sort of leader, not some sort of like subordinate or anything like that, right? None of those would fit the role of Iris West. Iris West would be the caring, loving, but also the go-getter that she really is, right? She's going to push and go get what she wants and what she desires as well. But she also is going to love Barry for who he is and not get involved so heavily in the aspects of being the Flash. Because that right there is not necessarily a partner for Barry Allen. It's just another person added on to Team Flash. So yeah, how to properly write CW's Iris West or CW Flash's Iris West? Well, take her completely out of Team Flash, give her her own identity, and truly write her as a love interest. Write her as somebody who is dealing with the aspects of Barry risking his life and having to deal with the fact that she doesn't know what's going to happen next, and she's not there day in and day out watching a screen as Barry is doing these things, and also not putting herself closer to harm than she obviously has to. There's things about Iris West in the show that make really zero sense, but also things that make you realize like that a love interest doesn't have to be a major main character in a large cast of people, but it also doesn't mean you could just, or you should just write her off entirely, right? But I would love to hear what you guys have to say in the comment section below about this idea, about how to properly write CW Flash's Iris West. I would love to hear what you guys have to say. If you enjoyed, leave a like, leave a sub, leave a comment down below, all that good stuff. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. And if you did enjoy this video, YouTube believes you'll enjoy this one, so might as well go check it out.